Hi everyone, thanks for joining the call. We will wait for a couple more people to come in, maybe give it about 5 more minutes. We currently have 27 people on the call right now. Okay, hi everyone. We have about 30 people in the room right now. So I'll pass the time over to Prey to kickstart the session and introduce us. Go for it, Prey.
Thank you, Maya. Welcome everyone to the Mekong Meet-up Series on gender lens investment today. And it's our regular session that we plan to see happening more often, perhaps every quarter. The Mekong Meetup is an informal yet informative session where we bring discussion into the table. And we hope that it will spark curiosity. It will bring our people together with, like-minded and also social investors that have interest in the Mekong region to discuss the matter that matter most to our hearts. Today, we have a lot of exciting activity in the breakout groups also. And we hope that there'll be more people joining us before we go into the first slide or the first set of introduction. Let me share with you a little bit more of what we do. For those of you that may not be familiar with AVPN, AVPN is a network of funders, also resource provider, social impact investor, that we wanted to commit to mobilize resources towards greater impact. And we're creating opportunity like this to make sure that our members and also people that have interest in making our society a better place, a more sustainable place, can mobilize resources together towards greater impact. An opportunity like this can be arranged in many ways. And one of the ways that we can do it together is to openly discuss and to share ideas and to bring about solutions that would tackle the issue of the day. Our recently launched gender platform is going strong. And we are very lucky today to have the head of gender platform, Patricia Matthias, here with us today. Pat will say a few words to welcome everyone into today's discussion. Pat, over to you.
Thank you, Prey. As Prey said, I'm Pat Matthias, Pat short for Patricia, and I head the gender platform at AVPN. So on behalf of everybody at AVPN, I wanted to extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you. I hope you enjoy this session, learn from it, and hopefully make a few new connections as well. And to the speakers of today, I want to extend my gratitude. Thank you for sharing with us your wisdom, your experience, and your kindness. Thank you. Let me
you,
also
Pat.
take this opportunity to highlight a little bit about what's happening on the gender platform. We've just kicked off a network of philanthropists across Asia. And this is all the way from China, Japan, India, Southeast Asia, Australia, who are coming together across country boundaries to look at and find ways to solve the problems of inequality and improve outcomes for women and girls. In addition, we've also kicked off the gender platform. Now you can access this. There's a site that's up and running. You can go to the AVPN website and click on platforms, and then you can go see the gender platform. If you wish to contribute to this site with your insights, articles, blogs, reports, please let us know. We want to keep the conversation going beyond today's session. And it's important we support each other to help improve outcomes for women and girls. So before I hand back to Prey, I just thought I'd read a little passage from a book that I'm currently reading. It's called The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. And it really talks about how can we lift women and drive for more equality. So I just wanted to leave that passage with you as we kick off the session. The engines are igniting, the earth is shaking, we are rising. More than any time in the past, we have the knowledge and energy and moral insight to crack the patterns of history. We need the help of every advocate now. Women and men, no one should be left out. Everyone should be brought in. Our goal is to lift women up. And when we come together in this cause, we are the lift. I thought that was rather powerful to kick today's session off. Thank you. I hope we all have a great session, and back to you, Prey.
Thank you, Pat. That was beautiful. Of course, we won't be able to pull an event, like this without great speakers. And our three speakers today are powerful, insightful, and charismatic female leaders. The lead speaker of today is Josephine Price. Josephine is co-founder and managing director of Anthem Asia. Josephine will also be leading into a discussion about innovation in women-led businesses under Group A when you go to the breakout group. The second speaker is Nisha Onta. Nisha is Vulcan's regional coordinator. She will be leading group discussion of Group B Women Plus Standard. And the third speaker of today is Bhagyashree Dengo. Bhagyashree is Plan International Regional Director. She will be leading Group C discussion about workplace democracy. So we'll be hearing more from our speakers, but don't worry if you wanted to be able to know more also from how other people are discussing in different groups that you didn't go to. We will bring everyone back to the room after 20 minutes in each group so that session assistants will be sharing more of what's happening in that group. And let me share with you a little bit more also about what's happening in the next 60 minutes from now. After this, we will hand the floor to Josephine to take you into her own journey, her own observation as a female leader, as a female investor, in the GLI landscape. After that, about 20 minutes, we will go into different breakout group A, B, and C, to discuss further and dive deeper into the topics. And after that, we will be back here in this big living room so that we can share more of our learning in each group. And then we would hope that everyone can stick around for the next 10-15 minutes after that, because we would have a networking opportunity for everyone to learn from like-minded people and to share your insight, upcoming event, because the Mekong Meetup is all about. And we hope that you do share your thoughts. Maybe you can use the chat box down below, and send that our team will gather questions and will raise that to the speaker. And if you feel compelled to send more questions to us, you can also email us to mekong@avpn.asia as well. And for those of you that haven't renamed yourself yet, please do so. Use your first name followed by the name of your organization. So that's pretty much it. Let's get started. I'm going to hand the floor to Josephine. Josephine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Allow me to just make sure that I can get the technology working. So give me a moment. I hope that I am sharing my screen and that you can see what I can see. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josephine Price, and I'm sending you greetings from Yangon.
Josephine, I think you need to share your screen. Click the share screen.
Can I share it? Is it now shared?
Yes, now it's being shared. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, it wouldn't be a Zoom event without one technological problem. So now that that technological problem has happened, we can move on. Right, so I'm Josephine Price. I'm standing in our office in Yangon. I think I'm possibly only two of us here today because Yangon is locked down. Like you, we're all suffering from COVID. I am one of the co-founders, alongside my partner Genevieve Heng, of Anthem Asia. We're a private equity fund, and we do SME investment in Myanmar. If you want to classify us in the universe of impact investing, we are finance first with implied impact, which means we're looking for a full financial return, but we do measure impact. Trey invited me to look at this. I thought, well, maybe what I can do is try and share my perspective as somebody who's been in Asia investing and has seen gender lens emerge, and try and give you my perspective on what that means, its importance, and the risks that we face if we don't get it right. So originally, a bit of background about me. I'm from Liverpool. We won the Premier League, so very happy. And I come from a large family. I'm one of 11 children. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the living circumstances that we find in Asia. When I was growing up, it was not quite as luxurious as other people's might have thought. So I can very much connect with the families and the women that I meet and that I see. I originally trained as a lawyer. I was one of the beneficiaries of the UK's absolutely, at that time, you don't have to pay for your education, which is how I managed to get to university. And I'm very grateful for that. That gave me a grant. So for those of us who've gone through that, we have to remember the importance of education to get women into the career. I have a poster in my office, which you can't see. It says, being a woman, Julie was essential to the office. She did all the things the men couldn't do, like joined up writing, thinking, and the rest of the work. So that's a sort of summary of what it used to be like. So my second slide, if I can move this on, is a reminder of the type of where we've come from. So originally, women's advancement in the workplace and generally has been linked to very socially disruptive events like a war. And the picture that we have on what is the left of my screen is Rosie the Riveter. She was portrayed to try and attract women to join industry by the American government during the Second World War. She's powerful, she's competent, she's not dependent. And it is strange that when governments think women can work and lead, because they need them, that's how they're portrayed. And of course, when they don't need them, they try to put you back in your box. And then on the right, we do have the woman who's Janet, who's just been appointed as the CEO of Citibank. Again, I thought looking at this picture last night, we've got two powerful women there, but the new CEO of Citigroup is showing us how far women have gone in the financial services world and in the investment world. But what was it like? Okay, going back. This is the world in black and white. This is the world of the traditional investment industry that I began in, where everything is in black and white. There are mostly men, they all look the same, and they all think the same. One of the things I wanted to highlight in this discussion, and particularly in relation to gender lens investment, is that gender lens investment is a beneficiary of people understanding bias in investment decision making. Understanding, you know, all the work that's been done in neuroscience to help us understand the dangers of groupthink, to help us understand how to guard against bias. Gender lens investment is a way of turning that black and white picture into a color picture, adding women into the room and adding an understanding of the products and services that women need. So if I was to add a gender lens to that picture, we would see women. There would be color, there would be context, it would be much more enjoyable. It would also, I believe, be much more rewarding and much more sustainable. So I wanted to share with you that I think part of what we're seeing in this journey of gender lens investment is a recognition that in investment, companies and more of a perception of what they do. And that should make for better investment decisions, and that should mean that more money goes into the sector. We're starting to see research from McKinsey, Credit Suisse, and other organizations which show that women's views, women's involvement in this, and greater diversity all around, not just women, greater diversity will improve investment return. My next slide is, okay, that gender lens is part of a continuum that we've been seeing as investment has moved from how do I make the most money quickly without really giving any thought to the damage that I create by that investment or the impact that I make. Doing a little bit of research on this, certainly there are religious movements which wanted to ensure that money was made in a socially responsible way. But the whole thing really picked up in the 19th century when you got the rise of, when you got the Industrial Revolution, and you got groups like the Methodists, you got the anti-slavery movement, you've got a whole range of different investment groups saying, we will not invest in businesses that are bad, we want to invest in businesses that are good. So it started to do that, and then we move into the later parts, into the 20th century, and we see an increasing awareness of corporate governance, the Cadbury report, which led the way to getting more women on boards. We get the principles of responsible investment, social development goals, and a whole host of other things. And it's been accelerating. And gender lens is now part of that continuum where people are saying, we want to have balanced investment. We want an investment that recognizes impact and also risk. And with gender lens investment, what we are looking at is the impact for women and girls, and also the risk for women and girls involved in those companies. So I'm very positive about it. I see it as a beneficiary of these two important trends. I see it, the result will be where we have a more balanced investment industry, and as a result, more balanced and sustainable companies. So that's my positive note. I then make a slightly observation, which is I'm a practitioner, okay? I'm private sector, and I haven't ever written a policy document, but I do feel policy. I feel the weight of policy as a practitioner. And my concern is there's so much policy and research on gender lens when the actual volume of capital that's being deployed is so small that by the time the practitioner gets into it, they've got a weight of things that they have to be doing, and you're making it 3 times more difficult for them to do their job. So my plea here is a practitioner, which is try and get the tension between policy and practice right. Don't try and accelerate too quickly. Don't say just because you're gender lens, you've got to do this, that, and the other. Try and encourage the sector by not making it overcomplicated. Dealing with investment is already risky. Dealing with all of the different policies makes life hard. Most investments involving women and gender in the Mekong area will be small. So you've got small teams, you've got small amounts of money, and their resources are stretched. So my plea is to all of you who are in the policy sector, please keep it simple. The other risk, I think, is that if we're not careful, we have a danger of creating a ghetto for female investors in gender lens investment. In other words, you know, if you're a woman, you must be doing gender lens, as opposed to, and I think one of the things that Pat was saying at the beginning, we have to make it the responsibility of everybody. So if you're a female investor and you want to do buyouts or tech, please do. Don't feel that there is an obligation that you have to do this. And similarly, if there are guys or whoever who want to get into this, then we should. It shouldn't be a ghetto where, a bit like nursing or teaching, it was the woman's responsibility. I don't want it to be a repeat of the poster in my office where, you know, the men did all the other stuff that women had to do, gender lens. So those were my observations. I'm not sure how helpful they are. I am very optimistic about the future of the sector. I do think we are in a strong period of growth, but I am concerned about the complexity that's being added to this subject matter. There is nothing closer to my heart than making sure that a young girl is not bowed down by not being able to get on, not being able to be educated, not being able to have a good job, not to have pay parity, not to have good products and services. I believe that we need to achieve that. So let's try and find out a way that it can be done by empowering practitioners and people who need to get the money out in the right way. So with that finished, I'm very happy to take questions.
Any questions coming in from participants?
No, I think they heard enough. I can recognize a few names out there.
You can unmute yourself and ask questions as well.
Okay, I'm the first. Hi, Josephine, it's Maud.
Hello, Maud.
Thank you for this very powerful presentation. I think it was really spot on. Maybe I'd like to know a bit more about your own fund, right? Because you said initially it's an impact fund, but you didn't develop that much on the impact measurement methodology when it comes to gender lens. So maybe you could tell us a bit more about it.
So we are an SME focused fund. We measure impact, the number of jobs created. We measure the number of women. We look at pay parity. We look at training. So we are applying a relatively simple lens. In relation to each company, there may be a plan within that company where it gives us an opportunity, say, for example, in a tech company to get more women trained for tech. But we are trying to keep it simple, Maud, so that we measure what we think needs to be measured. And in relation to each company, there will be some other things that we are following. So we are finance first with implied impact, and we will do male-led businesses, but our preference is to have businesses that have more women in ownership and management. And right now, the majority fits that description.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Josephine.
Thank you, Maud.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Hi, Josephine. I won't get to ask a question during the breakout, so I thought I'll take my chance here. I think I also kind of want to know, like, your experience of supporting SMEs in the Mekong region, and thinking about the model that you've chosen. What do you think, like, especially for women-led businesses, small and medium businesses, what is the appetite for them to be part of, this kind of investment arrangement? Because sometimes what we find with small and medium or even micro entrepreneurs that we work with is that they're a bit risk averse. They're not very confident So I was just wondering, like, your experience, and also, how do you build the capacity of these SMEs as well? Thank you.
Okay, that's a good question. So I think with, I was having a discussion this morning because we're trying to get a group of women entrepreneurs together. Women tend to be time poor. Now, they don't have a lot of time to go to networking events or trainings or anything. And so they want practical solutions to problems. And when I was asking questions this morning and saying, well, what's the biggest problem? Often the biggest problem in a country like Myanmar, and I'm sure it's the same in Nepal and Cambodia, is just dealing with bureaucracy. The painful bit of getting the government to give you the right chop. I had to sign 23 gazillion checks this morning with 2 signatures on the back because the banks want them that way. So it's really helping them to solve some problems. If you can help them to solve some simple problems, then you can bring them on a journey which then says, well, okay, you've solved that problem. You've got a bit more time now. Let's talk about talent retention. Let's talk about training. Let's talk about strategy. But you really can't dive in at the top end. You have to do a bit of share the pain, solve a few problems, and create a relationship. If you can do that and build up the trust, then I think they are not overconfident, but they're very persistent. And if I had to choose between an entrepreneur that was confident and an entrepreneur that had grit, I would go for grit. So I think once you have built the relationship and you've solved problems and they can see that you are sharing the pain with them. So, for example, we're running businesses here. If someone comes in and says, oh, I've had a bad day at the tax office. Yeah, we say, well, we've had a bad day. We had to go and sit for an hour with the tax department. And then they will understand all of the issues that you have. And that way you can build up the trust, and they can understand that instead of what they hate, which is, going into a large room, being trained for a bit, they want someone to talk to who's there and who can be with them. And if they say, oh, I've got, this has gone wrong, or yeah, I found this out, it can be good news as well as bad, you can sit and listen with them. So that's how we do it. Now, the problem with that is it's not very scalable, because it means you've got to be there and there's only so much that you can do. But that's the approach that we have adopted to mean that we can engage with female entrepreneurs. And also, for example, I don't play golf and I don't really drink whiskey or smoke cigars. So if someone sees me wandering around City Mark with a shopping trolley, or, wandering around the streets in Yangon at the weekend, they can engage with me like that. And I think that's another way that you engage with women, because they see you doing things that are similar to them.
Thank you. So we have one question here from Fifi Rashando from Good Return. A number of questions actually. So one, what are the key challenges of women entrepreneurs in Mekong region? Are they confident to access financial services or loans? How do you build their trust, and how do you get the pipeline of women entrepreneurs?
I think I might have answered some of those, but in terms of, the Mekong region is culturally, there are a lot of differences between women in Myanmar, even regionally within the different states of Myanmar. And I'm sure it's the same with Vietnam, with Cambodia, with Thailand. They're very different. So I think you have to treat each person as an individual. But generally, one thing I think if I use the word modesty, it's, not putting yourself forward, being told to be, polite, respectful. That seems to be fairly universal across the region. I hope that's that. And that doesn't necessarily coincide with a hard pitch for finance. So you've got to talk to somebody who sees beneath the diffidence and can understand that, it isn't just arrogance that will get you money or overconfidence. It's actually having a good idea. So, we have a saying that the more polished the pitch, usually the worse the idea. That if it's a good idea, they're just able to come in and talk to you about it. And you are not demanding that they have the world's best pitch deck. Just come in and chat, and we'll actually business plan if we think the idea is scalable enough.
Okay, thanks for that. We have one final question. Do you have time, or do you want to go straight?
One final question is fine, then we will move into breakout groups. Yeah.
Okay. So the final question is, do you see women investors who are ready to put their money in women-led businesses as potential but untapped investors?
Well, I'm one. I'm putting my own money in. You know, the fund is third-party money. It also includes mine and my partners and some friends, and some of them are women. Typically don't have as much money as men, so maybe we don't. But there are some very interesting foundations and family offices that are women-led, and I know quite a few of them are AVPN members, so they are getting involved in this. In terms of access to capital, from a family perspective, yes, I mean, there are a couple of tales of businesses that we've invested in where the entrepreneur was initially refused money by her family because it went to the brother. But actually what that did was make her more persistent, so that she had to mortgage land, start the business. So sometimes, you know, having to fight a little bit at an early stage makes me more, if I use the word grit and persistence, it's because I think it's so important for women entrepreneurs and women business owners. And just because you are the daughter of a rich person doesn't really make you an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Josephine. I think we're ready to go to the breakout groups. There are 3 breakout groups together. Group A will continue on the conversation with Josephine. Group B will go with me and Nisha to the W+ standard. And Group C will go with Plan International with Bhagyashree and also Diana and Sachel. Over to you, Aaron.
Right.
Hi, Josephine, do you want to share your screen for the...
I'm going to. Have you got it?
Yes, you see the screen.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna readjust a few things. So Prey, I think you're supposed to be in breakout room B, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move you there. Actually, I think Maya, can you help me move her to room B?
I'm unmovable.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, perfect. I think we have enough people in the session. Josephine, let's start.
Okay, well, as long as you're not too bored by hearing even more from me on this subject. I was asked to do innovation and women. So I asked myself, because innovation is one of those words everyone's using, like disruption. So what do we mean by innovation? Thought before we move into Q&A, it might be a good idea for us to just agree that we'll be working with 3 different types of innovation. First is a product innovation, and you have a picture there of an iPod. By product innovation, it's a new product that meets a new need. So we can have businesses that have innovative products. Then we can have innovative business models. At the bottom, we have a picture of a container. And if you read that excellent book called The Box, you'll understand how simply putting things in a container and putting them on a ship made a huge difference. So that's actually the business model. So there's no real change in what the company does. It moves goods from A to B, but it does it in a different way. And the other one is in relation to process, and there we have Grab. It's a new way of presenting a service to the customer. Previously, we were standing around flagging cabs in Yangon and then arguing with the guy about what the fare was, and now we're all on Grab. And I can now get food on Grab, which is even better. So we're talking about product, business model, and process. And here we've got examples. The woman on the left is a lady called Joy. If you watch the Jennifer Lawrence film called Joy, you will know her. She is quite an amazing person who created and then sold products, whether they were a special type of mop or hanger or shoe, but she got behind it. I think the first thing that she created when she was about 11 was a type of dog collar that was luminous. So she's somebody who is an entrepreneur and an inventor, is always looking for new products. The lady in the middle is a lady called Val Yap, and she is an example of an innovative business model because she set up Policy Pal, which was seeded by the Singapore government's sort of financial sandbox program, which my partner was involved in, and so met Val. And that is a very interesting model which allows you to search health insurance. And if you read online, a mobile app, and allows, it was sort of built for women because she came across it when her mother was very ill and couldn't access her health insurance products or records easily. So it was designed to make that an easier form, and it's grown into a whole range of other products. So that's the business model. And then on the right, there is a lady called Win Nanda Taik, who's from Myanmar. She has a company called RGO47. It's an e-commerce firm. But the smart thing that she's done is she took an existing distribution business for retail and she re-engineered it to deliver e-commerce. So that's an example, a bit like the container, of using something that's different. And of course, a lot of the people that are her retail agents will be women running small businesses in all the different towns across Myanmar. So what she's was able to do, instead of creating a whole new network, use an existing one, reconfigure it. So she's a very smart lady. So that's an example of product, business model, and process. Then I wanted to move from that to asking the group, what is holding women innovators back? What do you think are the major barriers and challenges? And I was hoping that through questions and discussion, we could maybe try and identify what we think the key things are that are holding women innovators back. So it says, have your say. This is where I pass over to AVPN to explain how you can give your views here in the chat function. And maybe we could look at a few of those and then open the floor for discussion.
Thanks, Josephine, for sharing. So maybe here you guys could just input your answer to this question in the chat function, and then Josephine or Pat, feel free to also chime in as and when it's relevant. Yeah. So what is holding women innovators back? Barriers and challenges? Feel free to type your comments, feedback, thoughts in the Zoom chat. So our first comment in Tak Himura from WOWE says family care. That says self-confidence, support, level of education.
Confidence, support, level of education. Yeah.
Cultural expectations, stay home to take care of household duties, etc. Nudi from FHI 360 says accessibility to resources. Katie from Change Fusion says unfamiliar with tools available, example technology.
Okay. So confidence, support, level of education, cultural expectation, access to resources, lack of familiarity with the technology. Confidence is not something that can be resolved quickly. But going back to the question, what is holding women back? Is it access to finance? No one said access to finance, or is that what you meant by access to resources?
Nudi says yes.
Yeah? Is that okay? So let's access to resources, including finance. If we were to, in terms of the cultural expectations, that does vary. I'd be interested to know whether there's any regional variation there, because in certain markets, I think Vietnam would be one. You do tend to get a lot of relatively strong. It doesn't quite have the same cultural expectation. So do we think that's the same across the region, or do we think that depends on the country?
Maya, do you think we can just go off mute and have the conversation, or do you want us to keep typing in the chat box?
Yes, feel free to unmute yourselves and elaborate on the questions.
I'm tired of listening to myself. Please talk.
Yeah, so in this breakout session is to hear everyone's perspectives and kind of have some insights from the discussion. So feel free to unmute yourselves.
Smaller group, I think we can just maybe all chip in.
Hi, this is Kasha from Evergreen Labs. I would love to chip in because I mentioned the cultural expectation point. So I'm based here in Da Nang, which is in central Vietnam. And I would say that actually, not only regionally, but within the country of Vietnam, I see a lot more conservative practices based here in the central region versus in Ho Chi Minh City, which I'd say is more westernized, more open to women-led entrepreneurs and women-led businesses, and similar patterns in Hanoi. So I also have done some work in Myanmar and Laos and see vast differences in culture, but I also see it across the country.
Yeah. Whereas I think, what about other things like confidence, Kesa, on the confidence, access to finance? Do we think that's something that applies over the region, or is there one country that seems to be doing a bit better than another that we could learn from? I'm putting you on the spot, Kessia, because you've done Vietnam and Myanmar.
Sure. Happy to jump back in. Sorry, I didn't know it was directed towards me. Yeah, that's a bit more complex, I would have to say. So I think, like in terms of education, that definitely doesn't hold Vietnamese women entrepreneurs back. Access to resources, also not. But of course, in Myanmar, that's different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think each point actually varies depending on the region quite a lot.
Okay, well, what about something that people haven't raised, which is, these are all factors, but what could be holding women back is the fact that there aren't easily accessible role models. They are not going in a track that someone's worn for them. They're having to break the mold to do it, and that's harder. Whereas a man is following in his father's footsteps. Do we think that lack of the lack of role models and it being the norm is holding women back? Otherwise, we've sort of got a conglomeration of different factors.
That's a really interesting point, Josephine, and which is why I kind of put self-confidence in there, because it takes a lot to have to go outside of something that is either expected of you or an area that you're comfortable with. Very often when you actually have less resources, you become more innovative. But to be able to make that leap, you have to, want to do it, believe in it, feel compelled. There has to be some factor that's pushing you. And maybe that's missing because of not having the role models or the permission to go do that.
Okay, the sort of permission to want to be number one. We're not taught to want to be number one. That's not aspirational. That's considered to be, I think, across most cultures, not the feminine norm. You're supposed to be the supporter, the helpmate, the helpmeet, look after the parents. I find in Myanmar, a lot of women are faced with a challenge when they get to their 40s of elderly parents. They're being brought back from overseas to look after their parents. Doesn't matter what they've been doing. They're the ones who've got to come back. And if they haven't got any children, it's clearly their job to look after their parents. So there's a lot of social pressure from that. So self-confidence seems to be it, and that if we then move on to the next slide, which is, if that's the issue, then how do we encourage more women innovators? How do you resolve those problems? It's going to take a while. We've already been on this path for a number of years. It's starting to get better. What do we think is working, and how do we encourage more women to innovate, not just to get nice, comfortable jobs in banks and accounting firms? you know, one of the things that they say in venture capital is you have to tell people it's okay to fail, that it's fine to fail, that every time you innovate or try something, you take risk, and it's okay to fail. And sometimes, because of the limited access to finance, women are do not believe that they can take the same risk. So how does the people think? What do people think about what is this risk averseness holding women innovators back?
So Haiti from Change Fusion says more role models.
More role models, but how do you get the more role models? You need to encourage it. We're in a bit of a chicken and an egg, aren't we? So how would that person who made the question supply more role models?
My name is Pat.
Okay, just let me just explain quickly. So what is in terms of like getting more role models? Yeah. So I believe, okay, in each country there are some existing female role models. And then I think like intermediaries like us, we have seen like those cases, and then we could actually like consolidate those cases and then showcase what they have done, so that like a bigger, like a wider population can get to know about it, and then to make it like more normalized that, okay, women can also be innovators. Yeah, so that's my thought.
Okay, you don't think there's a risk of, what do we call it, virtue signaling, and it being like, you know, the Kardashians, they're so successful, they're a long way away from me. How do I have a role model that's nearer to me to make me do that? Otherwise it's, oh, you know, that's never going to happen. It's just too far away. How do we have a role model that's closer so that you take the first step?
We had this experience before, like we're grouping up like a group of female entrepreneurs, female social entrepreneurs. And then actually they're not super successful, and then they have a lot of like failure stories to share. So I think, yeah, that kind of like get together is also quite powerful. I mean, like they're sharing, okay, what they've learned along the way, and then yeah, the people coming into the gathering, they also feel that, okay, yeah, actually they're just like normal people, not like, okay, they're too like far away that we cannot learn from them. So I think, yeah, it doesn't necessarily be like a super successful role models, but we can also just get those who are working in the sector to just share the lessons to make them like more like approachable, and then yeah, more like more exposure in the space.
That's interesting. Thank you. I'm going to test a theory out on the group. I wonder whether we're asking women to innovate at the wrong time. You know, women in their 20s and 30s have got this wretched biological clock ticking away. And actually you're more freer and more able to take risk the older you get. And, you know, in a lot of societies, it's the, you know, the women's power and influence tends to increase with age. So I wonder whether if we reach out to older women who have got less to, you know, they've sort of, the children have done, and they've got more economic resources, can we, instead of appealing to people at a very young age when they could be more risk averse, is that just my old perspective, or is there any merit in that viewpoint? By reaching out to a broader age group for innovation. Silence.
What an interesting thought, Josephine. I actually attended a session for women in tech. And it was kind of like a Shark Tank where, you know, they were pitching.
Yeah.
And I went in there thinking technology and everything. I'd see a lot of very young 20-something-year-olds coming up with all these crazy ideas. And I was surprised. Some of the soundest or the most meaningful ideas were very simple ideas, but came from a lot of older women. And there were quite a few older women who had actually worked, or, you know, they've done things like, say, legal or audit, and they were using technology to make things more efficient, faster, whatever. So it wasn't like they were coming up with the next Grab or the next, you know, big idea. but it was small but so impactful and so meaningful that you could see innovation in ways you didn't think of. And it came because of experience. So it's interesting.
So self-confidence and experience might be able to allow women to innovate because they would then feel they had the permission to take these risks. And because they are more experienced, then they are not sort of pigeonholed into the, just be cute type of role in an organization. Are there any other things that you think we can do to encourage more women innovators?
Sorry, I'll just keep in mind the time. We have to actually go back to the main room. But I think there's quite a number of good insights and discussions from this breakout session. Josephine or Pat, feel free to share back in the main room if we have enough time, but I'm just going to zoom everyone back there. Yeah.
Zoom us back.
Yeah.
All right, people should be filtering back into the rooms about now. Filtering back from the rooms, sorry. Thanks for your help, Maya. I realized that hosts are the only people capable of moving people around.
No worries.
Oh, we're back in the plenary. Okay. That 20 minutes went away very fast.
I think you're on mute.
Nisha, you're on mute.
No, I was just saying that the 20 minutes went away so fast.
Right. So is everybody back to the big Zoom room yet?
Yes, we have got everyone here.
Right. We certainly learned something that 20 minutes for a breakout group is not enough. Therefore, we'll be co-creating with any of you that are interested in organizing topics like this that would be of interest. We can certainly discuss. And if you wanted to raise topics that you wanted to see happening for the Mekong Meetup, feel free to send us email to the mekong@avpn.asia. So I think it's time for each group to share some of the learnings with the rest of our participants today. Let's start with Group A. Maya and team.
Josephine, do you wanna take it away since you unmuted yourself already?
Take it away now. No one wants to hear any more from me.
Okay, so in our breakout session in Group A, we actually asked two very interesting questions. So the first one is, what is holding women innovators back? Some barriers and challenges. So one thing that was highlighted is self-confidence, things like culture, having to stay at home, stuff like that. And then for the second question, we actually had, how do we encourage more women innovators? And I think Josephine brought up quite a good point that it is kind of a chicken and egg problem in terms of, how do we get women role models in the space to become innovators? Yeah. Anybody else has any thoughts to share on this? Pat?
Now I'm just conscious of time. So maybe we can go to the other groups as well, because
with the time, yeah.
Yeah.
With Group B, W plus standard, we have a very intimate group of 4 people. so that we get to learn more about different interested or expectation of our participants as well. So basically, we just wanted to take part in making sure that women and girls will be looked after, and learning some highlights from Nisha. Women Plus Standard will be helping how to empower women, and the profit goes back to making sure that they will be well trained, they will be looked after. But don't worry, guys, there will be more follow-up session, and all the materials used in all of the session today, Group A, Group B, and Group C, will be sent to those participated and provided recorded sessions as well. So that's what we discussed in our Group B. Let's go to Group C.
For Group C, we started with a great video about kind of unconscious bias, and showed that even those who think themselves gender champions and unbiased actually sometimes still possess that unconscious bias in them. That led on to a great presentation about some of Plan's work, which Satchel or our friends from Plan, would anyone else like to kind of add anything about that to summarize for the group?
Sure. Hi, this is Sachal. So we spoke through two examples in Laos and Vietnam, how we practice, gender transformative and a democratic workplace creation. And within that, looking particularly at feminist leadership principles. So Bhagyashree was able to share some of the principles and really some tips and actual examples of how Plan is taking that journey forward. I'd also like to credit and thank Mindspace for the wonderful riddle that we shared in the beginning. And workplace democracy, we see, is clearly the future. And it's not the question of if, but when organizations start to realize its value and transform the workplaces. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I understand that we are approaching the end of time. For those of you that could stick around, we will extend for 15 more minutes so that you will have this networking opportunity to discuss further all the things that you haven't had the opportunity to discuss. I would hope that some of our participants can share some of the learning from one of the sessions that you guys participated as well. Any volunteers? Apart from our session assistants. If you'd like to share your learning, please unmute yourself and feel free to speak up. Any questions coming in from the chat box, Maya?
Currently, no, but we recently learned that 45 minutes grid and allows a quick introduction of each other too. Mostly comments and feedback.
And we have 24 people with us, and it's approaching the end of time. So if you feel like turning on your video so that we get to see you, that would be great. Because it's a meetup, and we like to not only just see your name, we just wanted to see your face as well. And you may take this opportunity to update Mekong peeps about any projects or updates that you have in your pipeline, and it's a great opportunity to share with the rest of us. Or if you feel like suggesting topics, feel free to drop in the chat box or email us.
Priya Premier said, I learned so much about the gender lens investment criteria. Do you want to share a bit more about what you learned, or? Otherwise, it's fine as well. Anyone else can feel free to chime in and share their thoughts.
So my colleague Sharon has also joined. I can see her now, and that's the example I shared from Vietnam. Sharon and I talked about how Plan Vietnam has adopted the feminist principles and your journey through that, because you've been one of the first countries that embraced those. So happy to introduce you, and in case you want to share anything.
Yeah, thank you, Bangashri, and hello everyone. I apologise. I've come very late into the call because I haven't had another meeting, so I apologise. But I'm very excited that Bangashri got to show what we've done here in Vietnam in terms of the feminist leadership principles, and hopefully it gave some examples of some of the steps that we did. I think it's really important. One of the key things we learned was you really have to do an in-depth analysis of what the baseline is in your office, in terms of where you work, in terms of people's understanding of what gender transformative looks like and feminist principles look like. And a lot of it's around cultural biases and norms and and existing behaviours. So I think if as a first step, if everyone had a reflection on that, I think that's a good start to being really true to looking at feminist principles moving forward. And I'll put a little plug in. One of the ways to do that is to use the Gender at Work tool, which looks at the approach. So if you're familiar with Gender at Work, that's the tool that we used and sort of adapted for Plan. So thank you. And I'm really sorry I missed the conversation, but I'm available if anyone wants to contact me separately as well. Thank you, Bangashri.
Thanks. Since there's some interesting discussion, especially in my group, I'd like to have Nisha. Nisha, you're still there? Could you please share a little bit that we share in our group, because it would be a good opportunity for everyone else to know more about W+ also.
Sure. So in my group, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to do a lot of interaction, but I was able to share a little bit about the W+ standard, which is a women's empowerment standard. So basically, if you have any projects looking into women's empowerment, you can apply the standard for people who are familiar with like fair trade standards, similar to that, but looking at women's empowerment. And we measure women's empowerment in 6 domains. So, so if you have, you can go to www.wplus.org, you check on that. And we have measurements to measure women's empowerment in all of those domains. And you can actually check the measurements as well. So if you're interested in the M&E part of it, you can look at, how are we measuring leadership? How are we measuring time saved? Things like that. Please feel free to look at it. And the other thing is W+ 10 is also a certification label. So if you feel like you have a product that it's working on women's empowerment, and you would like to have W+ as a label on that, that is also something that we can work together as well. So please feel free to contact me and look into the website as well. And if you have any questions, there's the AVPN, I think, in the gender platform as well. Maybe we can engage there as well. And thanks, Bray, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Anyone else that would see this opportunity to share some of your thoughts?
I just have one other thought. I was at a discussion earlier on in the week about where I think Sasakawa Peace Foundation were doing some results of research they've done on gender. And I think that in terms of physical safety, do we think that programs that encourage women to, I'm going back to my picture of Rosie the Riveter with her big muscles, that sort of physical confidence that you are able to look after yourself, more engagement in sport, and feeling physically safe does influence how you present. That could also go to the issue of confidence. So what are there any programs that are within all of this? Are people trying to encourage or do this idea of feeling physically capable and able?
If I can take that, this is Shomo from Plan. I think, Josephine, we have seen in our programs, for example, say training around karate and judo for girls, especially programs which are targeted at changing social norms and behaviors. We have a big program against child marriage in Bangladesh, where young girls are trained in karate and judo and football, which is generally not what they would do normally. And that does change, a lot in terms of their own perception of their self, as well as the communities and the villages' perception of what girls can actually do. And we have also seen that when disasters happen in these communities, girls actually are much more confident in terms of leading that disaster response. And so from sports to leadership, the change is quite evident. And then they're much more confident to take, talk about decisions which would impact their lives, which is about child marriage. So definitely, I mean, there's a very clear link that we see in our programs. Perhaps a bigger, wider knowledge management piece may be needed, but we have clearly seen that this does happen.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other members today would like to share your thoughts? We still have a few more minutes.
I'd like to talk about another upcoming event, which is like a global campaign that Plan is doing. It is also to commemorate the International Day of the Girl. And this campaign is called Freedom Online. And it's basically looking at, the kind of violence, abuse, cyber stalking, and other, sort of violence that the girls face. And on a daily basis, when they are online trying to express themselves, what do they feel? And they are trolled and body shamed and so on. So what we did was that we spoke to about more than 14,000 girls in 22 countries. A lot of those also include countries in the Mekong region. And we put together their voices, and 8 girls out of them all have written a letter, which is an open letter going to all the leading social media companies to ask them and invite them to work together with these girls to find joint solutions to these kind of problems. So it's something really interesting. And we are all really excited about that. So if anybody would like to join in, you can connect to Plan International page where the open letter will be housed, and we'll be very grateful if you can cross-post messages and be part of the campaign. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashal. I also like to add that with AVPN members, with our network of funders and social impact investors, we have the opportunity to reach out to a larger community. So you can send in information and have us help you promote your courses and your events and activities. We'd be happy to help you to do more outreach to your stakeholders and target groups. So let me repeat the email again. It's mekong@avpn.asia. Pat, are you still with us? Would you like to add some of your thoughts as a gender expert? Is Pat with us?
I think Pat had to jump onto another meeting.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So we're coming to a close, and unless if any of you would like to raise your hands and share upcoming events, and this would be a good opportunity, I would like to take this moment to thank all of the speakers, Josephine, Nisha, and Bhagyashree, and everyone else that taking the time to spend an hour or so with us today, because there are a lot of free webinars out there, but you chose to be with us here, and we thank you for the time. And also with AVPN network of people like yourself, we would like to see more engagement. And the best way to engage is to start a conversation. And this is one of the ways that we make a step forward towards solutions or approaches that will make our community more efficient, more effective in ways that we mobilize our resources, and more equitably as well. So we hope that this session has been good to you, and it sparked some curiosity so that we can continue to have ongoing discussion on GLI and continue to check in on one another. Just give me a shout out if you would like to co-host an event like this, and we'd be happy to coordinate that with you. Maya and AVPN team, would you like to add anything?
And it's great to see so many people here today kind of interested in this topic. I think it's really important that we all are able to share and collaborate. And yeah, going forward, we'll be able to achieve some really great outcomes.
Thanks, Diana. So it's Friday, guys. I hope on behalf of AVPN, we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy a blissful weekend. So we hope to see you again in one of our upcoming events, and just stay tuned for the next Mekong Meetup. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
great. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Saying bye-bye.